Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be flying an absolute beast of an airplane, the Lancair Evolution. This thing is like, it breaks the sound barrier of good sound thought. Because it is so fast, it climbs so quick, it has so much power, and it is a twitch fest as far as handling goes. But that makes it perfect for us for our little journey today from Bar Harbor, Maine, all the way down to Groton, Connecticut. So it's going to be quite a journey today, and let's go ahead and get started. So I've climbed inside this thing, and again, this is a kit plane, which I think is makes it even more sketchy. But you can see here that we've got some plastic showing, some of the fiberglass. You can see some of the insulation here. This is a pressurized plane, believe it or not. And it is an experimental plane. And when I just look at it, it's kind of bare bones. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's what it is. I'm not going to lie, this controller right here reminds me of like somebody just took one of the lovely joysticks from a PC controller and just sort of wedged it into the joystick, a slot there. It's just kind of different. But anyway, let's get to it. So what I'm going to do too is I'm going to go ahead and pop on a couple batteries here. You're going to get some things. We do not want to touch the alternator or the generator at this time. That would be naughty because basically you're pulling energy out of the very thing you're using it for. But what I will do, of course, is I'll go pop on my strobe lights and my nav lights. Give everybody a quick little heads up to say, hey, we're about to get started. Starting this thing is a peach. That's one of the things I love about turboprops. They keep it so simple. I'm not going to come over here and press enter just yet. You'll see why in a moment. Okay, so that's set, looks good. All right, our fuel's going to be out. We're going to make sure this is set. We're not going to make sure we're not in the beta range or anything silly like that, which we are not. Just want to be kind of careful with that. Perfect. So to start this thing, oh gosh, it's easy. We're just going to hold the engine start button. I've got a button for it on my joystick. And of course, when we get to about peak RPM, we're going to start the fuel. So to kick it off, ignition comes on, fuel pump comes on, starter engage. We're just looking for when the RPM doesn't want to go up anymore. Nice and easy. About 40%. And there's the little I love that part. All right, well, I'm here. I'll give that thing a few moments to start. It's about 23 feet. Looks good to me. Nice. All right, that's all set up. We can go ahead and pop everybody else on. Nice. All right, that is taken care of. Let's go ahead and dial in the last couple details here. We're going to do a direct flight today, and we're going to take advantage of what this aircraft does so well. All right, so let's go ahead and get our computer all preset here. We're going to press direct. Again, nothing too fancy today. We're going to be going all the way down to Groton, which seems like a really long flight, but it really isn't when you've got a plane that can do over 300 knots with a single propeller. I mean, this thing's like, it's a Spitfire. It's incredible. Groton, enter. Looks good to me. I'll go to magenta line of safety there. We'll go ahead and now pre-select our altitude here. And we're going to be doing 28,000 feet. We're not supposed to do more than 28,000 feet. And the reason why is basically they can't certify it any higher than that, even though this plane will easily do into the 30s if you were that insane. All right, that looks good to me. That looks good. 28,000 is selected. We've got the track. CDI is selected correctly. Let's go ahead and pop on the transponder to give everybody a little heads up that we're not doing anything too silly here. Looks good to me. That CDI is the way I like it. Inset is the way I like it. Timer ref, everything is all set. And again, they just keep this thing so darn simple, and that's what I enjoy about it. All right, we're going to go ahead and pop on the particle separator. We're also going to come over here and hit our bleed air. The reason we're using the particle separator is because we are on the ground, and we just want to be careful that we don't suck anything nasty into the airplane. Now, let's see what we have here. We're lovely, like I said, Bar Harbor. You can see just how dark it is this time of year. And it looks like the sock is favoring the one to my left, which makes it a little bit easier for us. Again, since we're on the nice, easy-to-use G1000, let's take full advantage of it and see exactly what we need to do. Looks like it's going to be a right, straight, right, left. All right, let's do it. You want to be lazy? Just do one of these things. When you do one of those things, though, make sure you put it somewhere that's kind of out of the way. If you hit this button, this pops out, and it just makes it so darn simple to do stuff like this. All right, let's go ahead and disengage the parking brake, which be careful which parking brake you disengage. I swear there's like different buttons for different planes for that. And you will immediately have the first problem with this plane. And that is the fact this thing is, it's like a Porsche 9FF. It's a bomb with wheels attached. So we're just going to kind of come out this way. Like I said, we're going to kind of cut through everything. This plane wants to fly. It's incredible. All right, looks good. And like I said, we're just going to kind of sneak around the corner here. Nice and gentle. Lovely day up in Maine today. It feels cold. Like again, we're entering into the good old fall here, so hopefully we get some good sights of leaves as we're kind of cruising through. Whoop. And now you'll notice here, do not have a steerable nose wheel in this aircraft. So if you're wondering why the thing suddenly goes bonk and jumps, that is 100% my fault because I'm being too hard on the rudder pedals. But unfortunately, like I said, since I don't have individual toe brakes, it is going to be a bouncy experience. One of the things I wish the folks over in Laminar Research would do is they'd make an adjustment to the way that behaves, because I am gentle, but you can see just how jerky that is. There we go. And we're going to make our way down to this position for takeoff. All right, we made it down to the runway. We're ready for takeoff here. Pretty straightforward takeoff experience. We're just going to confirm ignition's on, fuel pump is on, door seals are going to come on at this time. That's so cool. It actually makes a sound. I love that. So that's all set. We're going to do one click of flaps for takeoff. It's a little bit safer, and this thing's a little insane on takeoff. So I'm going to go ahead and bring our idle up to basically our flight idle. You're going to get a little torque boost. I'm going to go ahead and pop the inertial separator off. So when we take off at this plane, we are limited to 1,200. This is wrong. This would be pound-feet, not feet-pounds of torque because, no, whatever. You know what I mean? So the reason we're going to be using not full torque is because if we did, we wouldn't be able to maintain positive control of the aircraft during takeoff. I did say this thing is like a bomb. It's ridiculous. All right, landing lights are going to come on. I'm going to go ahead and gently bring ourselves over to the runway here. Check my RPM, make sure everything's good there. Like I said, I'm going to be struggling a little bit with the taxiing because of that lack of differential braking. It's going to be the same problem you're going to have too. If you're on a twist joystick, boy, do I feel sorry for you. All right, there we go. Now, one of the things that I learned, though, is when you do get a little bit of air moving over the tail, it's a little bit easier. All right, there we go. Nice. Okay, here we go. One last check of all of our switches. Everything looks good. Give everybody a little wiggle waggle. So what we're going to do is we're going to smoothly apply our throttle here. It's about 500 torque right there. There's 1,200 torque right there. Release the brake. Get ready on the right foot. Right foot. Right foot. There we go. You can see as soon as you get a little air moving over the tail, it becomes much more polite. 65. Let's go. Hold off on the gear. Gear up. Pick up a little bit of speed. We're holding off on the flaps for a moment. All right, flaps are going to come up. Now, this is where things are going to get fun. So what we're going to do is we're going to transition to climb power. Right now, you can see we're about 1,200 RPM, or 1,200 torque. That's pretty good, but we want to take advantage of every bit of torque that this thing has to get us up to that 28,000 feet. As I said initially, this thing is a rocket. And right now, we're getting 1,500 feet per minute. Those are rookie numbers. And like I said, I try to limit my situation changes. Like I don't like to touch flaps and power at the same time. That just gets dangerous real quick. All right, come swing around this way. There we go. Looks good so far. All right, now that I'm in the direction I need to travel, I'm going to increase torque. Now, this gets tricky because you need to increase torque, but you need to not exceed, you don't need to see that, not exceed your engine temperatures. And you can see if I just jam on the throttle there like that, my torque is not peaked, but my temperature is at 751 right now, which is the pretty much maximum limit you get for ITT. So I'm just going to hold it steady here. Slowly feed in a little more torque, and it seems like 1,800 is going to be about our limit today. Looks good, looks good. I'm just trying to square off a little bit, and you can see our climb rate is shot to 3,400 feet per minute. We can actually get a little more climb out of this, but like I said, I'm being a little bit conservative. There we go. Again, if I set a stopwatch on this thing, it's like 5-6 minutes to altitude, but I won't make you watch the entire climb here. All right, let's go ahead and transition to the right here. We'll start taking ourselves on course. Looks good right there. Bring in a little bit of trim. You can see if I transition and let go of that pedal, the plane jumps to the right. I'm actually going to bring in a little bit of rudder trim here. A little bit of rudder trim, make this thing much more stable. All right, let's get the automatic pilot fired up here. Pretty easy. We have track mode, we have autopilot on, and of course we can select what we want to do for vertical speed and everything like that. So right now you can see this thing is just shooting up. Notice there is no flight director, by the way. That is completely accurate. There would not be. It's just something you have to kind of be mindful of. Nav mode on. We can turn GPSS. That just means basically a global positioning system, satellite system. And the big thing here is when you hit this, it's supposed to enhance just exactly how precise everything is working. Like it should be a little bit more precise. But the reality is it just locks onto the GPS. All right, let's look at our engine situation. So you can see here we are absolutely at peak temperature here. We really shouldn't be going hotter than this. We can go hotter than this if we want to extract a little tiny bit more climb out of it. But the reality is we just have no reason to, because we're doing 116 right now and we're climbing still about 2,700 feet per minute. But to give you an idea of how absurd this thing is, sorry engine, sorry engine, sorry engine, sorry engine. Look at this. You could see. That's a lot. That's a lot. But the reality is, like I said, you were paying a $750,000 US for the engine on this thing. As tempting as it is to operate it outside of the green, you're not going to operate it outside of the green. But the one thing I just wanted to demonstrate is just you do have that torque available for you and you can use it. It doesn't mean you should use it unless you're in an absolute race to get up to some specific altitude. We've crossed 10,000 feet, so what I'm going to do now is kind of clean everything up here. We'll go ahead and get rid of our landing lights. Good, good, good. Everything is all set with that. We're pressurizing smoothly, which is very, very important. Like I said, we want to get that. The big next thing we have to watch out for is about 2992 when we cross 18,000. Crossing about 15,000, so now it's time to settle into a little bit smoother climb here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take advantage of our nose here and just bring the nose down a little bit. So we're going to come back to something that's a little bit faster for us. And it's also going to be a lot more comfortable for the passengers. So I'm going to bring the power back just a little bit. Like I said, about 780 Celsius is plenty. And pull it back just a tiny bit. There we go. So we're going to continue our climb. You can see I brought my nose down to about 7.5 degrees, which is kind of like a magical position. And we're going to accelerate pretty rapidly here. Again, this is a stupid fast airplane. As always, because we're still into turboprop mode, we do want to keep an eye on everything. What's going to start coming up next, of course, our temperatures are going to continue to rise if we want the same torque. NG is going to start climbing up a little bit too, depending on what's going here. One of the things we just want to be mindful of too is if I come down here, you can see I'm burning a lot of fuel from the left. I will switch over to the right once I get a little bit more altitude. Go ahead and bring out our zoom a little bit, make it a little bit more comfortable for us. I like that right there, much better. Coming up on 18,000, all we need to do is switch over to transition altitude. I'm just going to let kind of the engine slowly cool off here. Again, I'm not doing anything aggressive. Fiddling with this the whole time. If we wanted to be a true flight engineers, we could keep this at, like I said, about 750 the whole time by fiddling with it back and forth. I find it's easy. You just kind of set it and just sort of let it sort of bleed itself off there. All right, barometric pressure comes down to 29902. Perfect. That's all set to go, and we'll see you at 28,000. All right, we're just about at 28,000. Look at that. All right, we're coming down. You can see we're doing about 128 knots. From the engine perspective, I didn't touch the throttle the entire climb. I didn't need to, but one of the things you'll notice is my NG did come up. ITT is going to start coming down very quickly. The reason being, of course, is that we're going to start accelerating. Now, based on the book, this is it. We can't go any higher than this. This is what they say. If you want to think about it certified, this is basically the limit. And you can see our differential pressure is really, really high. So let's just give you an idea of it. So now we're going to begin our acceleration. Like I said, this thing picks up speed pretty quickly. But one of the things we want to do is flip over to the other fuel tank. So I'm going to come over here real quick. Fuel pump comes on, and we're just going to click, just like that, pop over to the other fuel tank. It's going to take a few minutes to kind of stabilize. You can see we burnt quite a bit of fuel up there. And one of the things we can do is actually reset the fuel amount. And I'll do that in a minute once I trust that this thing is stabilized. We've got to fix our trim, though. Remember how we used quite a bit of trim for that climb? So I'm just tapping the number 5 on my keyboard a little bit to kind of straighten it out. There we go. Perfect. So that's all nice and straightened out. We're going to start burning fuel from the other side. Fuel pump's got to come off just like that, and now we're basically ready for our cruise sequence. So what I want to do now is I want to start kind of fiddling with all of my different gauges and things like that. You can see how we're well within our ITT. Like I said, the engine will cool off pretty quick. I'm going to go ahead and increase my throttle just a tiny bit there. Again, I'm going to take advantage of it. I paid for 750 degrees Celsius. I'm going to get my 750 degrees Celsius. Just be careful when you do that you don't exceed the maximum RPM. And keep in mind, too, you're going to be burning a lot of extra fuel when you do stuff like this as well. There we go. Nice and easy. Perfection. Good enough. All right, with that all taken care of, we can take care of a couple little other things. So one thing I noticed is I've got, let's call about 49 on one side, and I got about 58 on the other. So I'm just going to dial that in real quick here. Let's see here. I've used that much fuel. That's not bad at all. Let's see, what does it think I have? Gallons remaining is 71.8. Let's just do the math. All right, let's grab my calculator. 59 plus, what did I say, about 49? That's 108 gallons remaining. Perfect. So the totalizer is all set. That's just going to make it a little bit easier to keep track of how much fuel we're burning. If you're wondering if this is where we are, this is not where we are. Don't panic on those magenta lines, but we've sped up quite smoothly. Temperatures look good. Power looks good. You can see I'm just about peak RPM here. I really can't push the throttle much forward than it is already. I could, but like I said, let's see what we're getting for ground speed right now. And like I said, this thing is a rocket. 291. That's plenty. That'll definitely get us there quickly. All right, we're about 29 minutes before we get to our destination. It's a good time to start thinking about descent. Now, this aircraft, as you can see, we've chewed through quite a bit of fuel already. And I've actually hit this real quick. You can see it's actually quite a bit more than that, but that's just the way that works based on what we set it to. But we're about a half a tank already, which that's nice. But you can see here we're doing 308 ground speed, even though we have a 29-knot headwind. This thing truly is a very fast plane. So we're going to get ready for our descent. Like I said, I usually do, for this particular aircraft, it's about 1,000 feet per minute, which is great because that makes the math easy. Because if we're 28 minutes away and I'm at 28,000 feet, you can kind of do it real quick and realize, oh, we just need 1,000 feet per minute from 28 minutes. Exactly. And that's generally how I do it with aircraft that at this performance. Some people are like, do you have a better rule of thumb for that? It depends. We're 145 miles away. We could definitely begin our descent. I usually say double your altitude. So if you wanted to, you could actually start your descent 56 miles out. That's kind of the rule when it comes to propellers. If you want to make this a little more leisurely, we could descend now. One thing that was kind of going to impact your descent decisions here is the fact that we're over ocean. So if we lose our engine, let me just show you something real quickly here. I'll look out the window. As you can see, the coast is pretty far away. So a loss of an engine, if we have significantly less altitude, is going to be fatal. There's just no recovery. There's nothing on the ground. There's nothing, obviously, water. Hopefully we find a ship or something if we have to go down. But the reality is it's going to put us in a really, really, really bad spot should we descend early. So that's kind of two general strategies. I'm going to opt to wait to get some land underneath us and deal with a steeper descent, just because I really don't want to have an issue where I have to pick one of these blue tiles to land on. All right, we're about 15 minutes out, and we got plenty of land underneath us. We're ready to start our descent. Come over here, of course. So we have a couple different options for this one. The cell button basically means select the altitude. So I'm going to press that, and you can see it gives me 100 down. If I click this thing a bunch of times, it's going to start showing me how many feet per minute. You're going to want to gently pull your throttle back. And again, we're going to go into a yellow pretty much instantly with this plane. So you definitely have to kind of back that throttle out. And remember, as we descend, you're going to have to continually back the throttle out because it's going to be basically sucking that power down. All right, so we have to get rid of 28,000 feet in 14 minutes. If you do the math on that real quick, that's 2,000 feet per minute. So if I select 2,000 feet per minute, you better be quick on the throttle because you're going to find yourself quickly exceeding your max speed if you're not careful. There we go. That's about 2,000 feet per minute. Our target altitude is about 1,000. Taking a look at the weather report from Groton today, it's, let's see here, it's a variable wind at 5 knots. We've got about 6 statute miles of visibility, scattered at 3,000, overcast at 4,000. Let's see here, we got few 65, altimeter is 3026 when we do get there. So 5 at 5, so we're definitely going to be taking a runway 5 or 6 today. All right, select procedures. Let's go ahead and get that all squared away. We got ILS for 5. I'm going to do the LPV here. It's just easier. Enter. Let's see here. How do we want to get there? Do we want to do Madison? Do we want to Groton? We'll take Groton because we're going to have to do a course reversal. Minimums, we can put them in. Not really critical here for this particular flight. And we'll actually go ahead and activate that. That's going to go ahead and kick us to the side. And one of the things you'll notice is the VNAV light basically popped on here. That's awesome. We can actually flip on VNAV now, which is so cool. VNAV is awesome. What it will attempt to do is it'll basically attempt to kind of capture the appropriate altitudes at the right time. And again, this is a very straightforward approach. It's nothing too fancy. The only thing we really got to watch out for is crossing that magical 18,000 feet there. So we'll go ahead and get that barometric pressure set quickly. I'll go up to 3026. It's going to panic on me when I do it, and then you're going to see this little magenta lines basically run. You're going to see we're using a little bit more than we need for the descent, but that's okay. Like I said, we've got a long way to get down. Throttle can come up just a tiny bit. Again, I paid for the entire airspeed indicator. I intend to use it. But one of the things we do want to do is get onto the other fuel tank, because we're kind of getting low here. Whew. Jeez. For like 25 gallons less since I looked last. All right, looking out the window. Looks pretty good. Oh my goodness, this is crazy. And there's the Quabbin Reservoir. If I can take a peek, let's see if I can get a good look at it over the nose here. Man, this is insane. I'm in Massachusetts and I'm already on my way down. Gosh, this thing is fast. All right, you'll observe here that the VNAV has taken over. It's actually controlling my altitude down. It shows that I'm just a little bit low, but it'll deal with it. Now that we're under 10,000, however, we got to do a couple little things. Then we can go ahead and review our approach here. So it's going to be pretty straightforward. We're basically going to cross. You can actually see it way off in the distance. It's kind of chilling there. We'll go ahead and zoom out on this side so you can see it better. We're going to cross Groton, which is the VOR. We're going to do basically a procedure turn. It's going to be pretty easy, good old-fashioned parallel approach. We're going to do a 180, and then we're going to come back in for landing using the RNAV. Like I said, keeps it real simple. We're going to actually give it a little bit more throttle. We've descended quite a ways, and what we'll do is kind of hit these switches when we get a little bit closer. All right, we've crossed over Groton. Now we're getting ready, heading over to Mondi, where we're going to do a little power turn and come in for a landing here. Landing lights are good. A couple little things we like to do. Just check your ignition, make sure your fuel pump is set. We've got a landing light, everything's here. This is one of those aircraft that you have to be a little careful with landing pressurized. It's like many aircraft of this kind of style and of this class. So one of the things we're going to do is when we finish our procedure turn, we're going to go ahead and depressurize. All right, we're all nice and aligned. Let's go ahead and arm the approach. Pretty simple on this particular one. Again, we're already in track mode. That's kind of what we get for that. And like I said, we're just going to confirm everything's good. Track is set. We got to fly quite a bit of this on our own, but that's not going to be that big of an issue because, like I said, it's a pretty straightforward approach here. All right, right off the nose, you can see we're doing about 120 knots. Everything's good. Torque's good. We are on the correct fuel tank for the left side. All of our switches have been set. I can actually take a look out the window, and you can see a lovely Groton way off there in the distance. One of the things you can do during the approach is it sometimes helps to raise your seat up a little bit to make it a little bit easier. Actually, there's a tanker ship down there. Pretty darn cool. Very easy approach for this one. Like I said, not a lot of drama going to be going on during this approach. Like I said, you don't have a specific button for it or anything like that. But like I said, as long as you're in track mode, you're good to go. At any point, of course, we could flip over onto, like if we want to do a direct to one of the waypoints or something like that, we could hit that. But we'll get a little closer on the approach here. All right, we're about a 5-mile final. A couple things we're going to want to do is we're going to get the plane all ready for landing here. This plane, it comes in a little fast. So what you'll notice here is we have an AOA indexer, and we're right at the bottom of the green here. You'll notice we're slow enough. So what I'm going to do is actually go ahead and pop it down. The first click of flaps. I'm going to go ahead and cancel the automatic pilot here. And now we're going to go ahead and begin our approach. Landing gear are your friend for this plane. What they will do is definitely help slow you down. I find when you approach with this aircraft, 85 knots seems to be a pretty darn good speed. Like, it's not too fast, it's not too slow. But the one thing you do have to be careful with is when you cut the throttle, the nose is going to get wicked heavy and everything's going to kind of untwist. So one of the things I do recommend is by the time you get 3 miles, make sure everything's trimmed, make sure everything's down, make sure like your flaps are the way you want them, the trim's the way you want them, because you're going to be fighting it for the last couple feet there. And there we go, about a 3-mile final there. You can see I'm coming a little slow. And as I was promising, you do have to kind of like move your head up a little bit to see a little bit better with this airplane. It's one of those things where it just is. So the turboprop model in X-Plane is fantastic in the best and worst sort of ways. It's fantastic in that if you need any power changes whatsoever, it's going to come with quite a bit of I don't want to call it shenanigans, but you're going to find the plane twists all over the place. You're going to find that it takes time for the power change to actually kick in. There's just quite a bit to it. There we go. The nose come down, and we're right on target now. A little bit slow, but we've also burnt an enormous amount of fuel coming out here today, so it does not surprise me. All right, start getting your trim on. Quick little pro tip, your keyboard has a trim button for pitch. It's your bracket keys. And sometimes I find it's easier to use the one on the keyboard than it is to use the one on the joystick. Getting a little slow. Don't do anything silly here. All right, runway's made. We're just going to go ahead and reduce throttle to idle. And what we're going to do is we're going to hunt the ground. Go ahead and settle down. A little bit of crosswind, nothing bad, and just easily hit the brakes. Like I said, this is a much lighter plane than you expect. And we are awesome. Gosh, what a beast of a plane this thing is. Wow. Wow. So I do not want to have to pay the fuel bill for this thing. But as you can see, it got us down from Maine all the way to Connecticut, about 350 miles. And it did it fast. It took a little over an hour and a quarter. That is normally a very, very long flight. And you don't even get me started with how long of a drive it is. Enjoy.